Well, since we have Van is now would like us to talk about Life of Pi.
What makes you think?
What can you tell us about the Life of Pi? Obviously, that was a fantastic effort from Rhythm and Hughes, but also sad in some ways.
Right. And I remember I went to Rhythm and Hughes to interview them about it, and you could tell, there was a certain kind of, I didn't know what was going on. But, for them to basically, figuratively anyway, close their doors very shortly after winning the Oscar, or was it right before the Oscar?
Before.
Right before, yeah. Yeah, there was a cruel kind of irony and poignancy to that whole thing. But that was I just thought that was, talk about great CGI. See, to me, that tiger, that is a thing of beauty, man. And you get right up on that thing, and that was an instance really where the coldness that sometimes there is in digital imagery, I did not feel that coldness was there. That creature, you could practically smell its breath, and that was a real achievement, I thought.
Yeah, amazing.
I suspect probably a lot of you have seen Life After Pi. I actually looked at it again this afternoon because I thought the subject might come up. And I see that on YouTube it's up to like 1.2 million views.
Tell them what it is, Don.
Yeah, I will.
Sorry. I'm like a nagging
See, this
wife.
is great
Sorry.
because you guys, you interview people for a living, so I don't have to do anything.
Doesn't mean we don't
here.
have. Yeah, that means we don't have to be articulate. We could just. So anyway, Life After Pi is a 30-minute documentary, and it was done by Scott Lebrecht, I think is his name, about the final days of Rhythm and Hughes, and he talks to a lot of the people that worked there. He talked to John Hughes, and it's really, at one point when they're interviewing him, John Hughes kind of, has a tear in his eye. And it was a very emotional time for them, and it's conveyed very beautifully in this documentary, which also kind of summarizes the problems of visual effects companies these days. I think they cite something like 21 effects companies had gone out of business in the last 10 years, and they had a whole list of them going through, and there's got to be more than 20 because I know a couple of them that went out of business that weren't on their list. The effects community is getting squeezed, particularly in the United States, in which they have to agree. Well, there's a couple of problems. They have to agree basically to a fixed bid on a project, even though they don't really know what it is they're bidding on a lot of the time. X number of shots often, but they could be horrendous or they could be changed. The rather capricious nature of filmmaking these days is it's easy to change everything, and lots of filmmakers kind of like to do that up to the very end. And then there's the problem of tax subsidies, both overseas and elsewhere in the U.S., that makes it very difficult for American and Californian companies to compete, and it's just a kind of sad perfect storm of things that's kind of pushing the visual effects businesses under, and at the same time making a very unstable situation for visual effects artists who have to often now have to follow the work as it goes overseas.
And of course, a lot of those visual effects companies that have closed used to be our advertisers. My Rolodex, if I go through it, I could probably throw out half of the cards in my. I actually still have a physical Rolodex, believe it or not. I hardly ever use it. But if I went through it, I could probably throw half the cards away. There are so many companies that used to be around, and so it's just made things so much harder for the advertising team trying to sell ads, because it's a smaller and smaller pool, and those companies are hurting too, a lot of them. So it's
I know
sad.
I know it well.
Yes, I know you do.
But it is also one thing that running a small company for many years. We had a good run, 24 years. But one of the things that we were always very grateful for was that you would also cover smaller companies, that you were very fair and you didn't sort of just yield to, one company that might be more powerful or even in the case if they legitimately should have the majority of the coverage, you also made room for some of the other companies that were specializing in different areas, like mine, doing digital map painting or traditional map painting and then digital map painting. And you wrote an article which I want to thank you for, called The Company of Artists, and you did a little profile about us at Matte World Digital. And it was just, it's like, it was such a gift for us to do that it was fantastic for us.
Well, that kind of goes back. I think Don's feeling about Willis O'Brien in a way infused the magazine all these years, in that there's these guys that are working quietly in the back, or sometimes when you get a big starring company like ILM, then you've got support companies that are smaller. Don was always very big on let's shine the light on these kind of otherwise perhaps not as celebrated as they should be, people and companies and that sort of thing. So that's been true from issue 1.
That's terrific.
Yeah.
All right, I think we can do a few questions from the
Sure.
audience. How about we have somebody with a microphone. If anybody would like to ask Don or Jody a question. Down here in the front row, I see somebody with their hand raised.
Thank you. I just wanted to know about the story behind the cover, just the simple image, the logo, and how that has gone 35 years without changing.
Well, it's probably gone 35 years without changing, because once I get something I like, I kind of don't like changing it very much. But as far as the logo was something I designed back for the first issue. It's actually a kind of a hybrid of a font, and then I kind of jazzed it up a little bit. It's kind of understated, and the idea was it almost looks like a strip of film. So that's kind of the idea of the logo. As far as the covers go, I've kind of taken pride in the covers over the years. If you look at all the Cinefex covers, they almost all have something in common, and that is that there's a single image. We try not to make them too busy. It's just a single image that's very clear and says the movie that we're covering. We don't want to have anything that's so esoteric that you can't look at it and say, oh, that's E.T. And if you look at the covers, there's very few that don't fit that criteria. They're all kind of simple and straightforward and iconic in a way. Not sure what else to say
And
about it.
Don's very picky about the cover too, super picky.
You remember the gag cover we sent you one time?
Well, yeah, we've gotten several of those over the years, but
Every once in a while, because you always go, maybe we could get the cover of Cinefex. So we would make covers to send you to see if we could get you interested.
there we are. They're still doing that. We had Digital Domain actually sent us a couple of proposed covers for our current issue. We didn't use them actually, but they'll send us the image with the logo already pasted on there, so that little hint.
Well, only a follow-up to that. Even in your earlier magazines, you had like text, and you would talk about what was inside the magazine. Did you never have any pressure to say, these are the films we're talking about in this issue? I know it's on the spine, but even in the Russian and the
Okay, well,
Japanese
you're
versions.
obviously a subscriber. I like that, because I can't remember how long ago it was, but we got pressure from distributors to put a barcode on the cover, because it got to the point where they just said, well, we won't handle your magazine if you don't have a barcode on the cover. And so at that point we said, well, if we're going to put that on the cover, we might as well put the article titles. And so we now have 2 versions of the cover that we publish for each issue. One of them is the pristine cover, which our subscribers get. and we have the cover that has the barcode down in the lower right and the titles of the film that we're covering.
Now, I know about that because I read it in Cinefex.
What's that?
You actually said that one time. You published that.
Oh, well,
You explained the differences.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, we thought, we actually published a couple of issues once the barcode edict came down, where we just did the whole barcode. And I said, well, after doing that for a few issues, I said, well, there's really no reason why you have to do that on all of them. So we've since published 2 different covers. So it's a little extra reward for our subscribers if the people who actually subscribe get the clean cover, and if you buy it in the stores, you have to endure a barcode and a little type at the bottom. So subscribe.
Another hand raised over here.
Hey, well, first of all, thank you again for being here with us tonight. I just was wondering if you could give us a sense of how you go about surveying the landscape of the films coming up, and what's the editorial process of deciding what to cover, and has there ever been a film that sort of either you didn't, in looking back, that you felt got away and you didn't cover it? I mean, we talked about Superman, or a film that you didn't give enough coverage to that in retrospect you wish you had done more on.
Well, one of the challenges of picking the editorial is that we're quarterly. So, we've got every 3 months, so there are movies that fall through those gaps. I mean, obviously, if a great movie comes out in June, we can't cover that, like in November, you know what I mean? It gets kind of weird. So that's part of the problem. And then the other problem is, though, our lead times are very long because our articles are like 8,000 words typically. We cover 4 films per issue, and typically each of those articles is 8,000 words. Now, if you're not a writer and you don't know, that may not mean much to you, but I mean, most magazines often have 1,000-word articles, 500-word articles even. So 8,000 words is a lot, and it takes a lot of lead time to do that. So we're always trying to find the movies that we have time, because it takes, Joe and I both write 2 articles per issue, so we're both writing 16,000 words. It's a lot of interviewing. So we've got to find the time to do that and have it come out. But if we do it too early, the studios won't let us have any of the images and won't tell us anything. It's actually very tricky in a way that it would not be if we were a monthly magazine. The quarterly thing does make it, tough.
So you have a strategy meeting to plot this all out.
We do. It's not pretty. And it's kind of, And yes, there have been ones that have gotten away. Here's the thing. We'd love to do more like little shorter articles about things like the twinning thing in Social Network, for instance, is a good example. But we didn't really know about that until the movie came out, and then then it was too late to do something. But we thought, wow, that could have made a nice little couple-page article just to do something just on that. So yeah, between the studio secrecy and our schedule, trying to find things, and especially in this day and age, I'm the one that keeps saying, people get things on their phone 5 minutes after it happened. Are they really willing to wait 2 months to read an 8,000-word article about something? Thank God many of you still are, because it's just a whole different animal. I don't know if I answered that very well. It's just tricky. And sometimes we miss.
Yeah, also, I mean, the whole issue of timing is much more critical now than it used to be, because back when we started the magazine, it was a quarterly magazine, but there weren't all these online outlets and things like that. And so if we came out with an article that came out 3 months after the magazine or after the movie did, it wasn't that big a deal. There would still be people who wanted to read about it. Now, you come out a couple of weeks after the movie did, and everybody's already knows everything they want to know about it. So that's a tricky thing.
Yeah.
Although you're a little hard on yourself because you go in depth and you do a good job.
Yeah, but I think, judging, judging from our circulation figures, it's our numbers are way off from what they used to be. Our circulation is probably half of what it used to be when at our prime, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that most people can get what they want to know on a lot more timely basis than we can give it to them.
the other thing that does go into the editorial process, though, I'll tell you, is studio, which we've got a revolving studio that is giving us the most trouble thing, you know, and it changes because the personnel changes. So if like all things are equal and we got these two movies to choose from, but one of them is this studio that's been so uncooperative and horrible, and another studio that's been very nice and cooperative, well, you know, that is if all other things are equal. But that is a consideration, because who needs the headaches, you know? So that makes a difference. There are some movie stars, believe it or not, that make it much more difficult to get photographs
Hard to
approved.
believe.
Yeah. So there's sometimes like, oh no, that person's in that movie. That means it's going to be really hard to get photos approved. And
I remember there was a shot that had a star in it, and we couldn't get the approval, and you couldn't use it. I remember that experience. Yeah.
I don't remember which one you're talking about,
Yeah.
but we get that
You get a
a
lot.
lot. Yeah.
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 If I can kind of hijack the conversation here, since we are getting close to running out of time.
No, we're
I kinda
going to talk all night.
Oh, we are? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's fine. Well, I'd kind of like to talk a little bit about what's been flipping on behind us here. We have recently being about 2.5 years ago, with a company called New Scribbler, developed a Cinefex app, which,
Yeah.
thank you. And kind of as we did with the magazine, we wanted to have it special. We didn't want to just do what a lot of other publications do, which is throw a bunch of PDFs up there and let you look at them. And so Greg and I and the guys at New Scribbler, Greg and I primarily kind of designed what we wanted it to look like. We basically reformatted the magazine so it doesn't just look like the regular print edition. It has all of the text that's in the print edition is in there, but it allows us to, because it's digital and doesn't take up much space, we have roughly twice as many photographs as we do in our print issue, and we can have up to, we've had up to 30, 40 minutes of video of various visual effects breakdowns and things like that. And if there's ever a magazine that kind of benefits from the ability to show video, it's ours, because we'll get I'm going to ask Greg to kind of talk us through that in a little bit, but we have a way we can kind of toggle back and forth still-wise between a plate and a comp, for example, and you click back and forth. And then often if we have the video breakdown, we'll have a little video button next to it, and you can click on that and it'll show it in running video of the shot being composed. So it's really kind of a wonderful thing. Then in addition to that, just early this year, January, I guess, we, again with New Scribbler, introduced what we call the Cinefex Classic Collection, which we went back and digitized, the ones that weren't already digitized, went back and digitized every issue from number 1 to number 126. And those issues are now available. They don't have all the extra bells and whistles as far as extra video, extra stills, but they do. It's fully searchable. It's viewable in a number of different formats, and it's basically allows the entire collection of Cinefex to be viewed, to be carried around in a 1-pound little device. I've got my Cinefexes on 2 shelves beside my desk, and I really need a third one. But it's right now, if you get the whole collection, it would probably be close to 5 feet high, 6 feet high probably, and you basically get the entire run of Cinefex fully searchable, available on the iPad, and it's the technology. I think the guys did an amazing job with it, and
It is an amazing resource too, just because
Yeah.
it chronicles the whole sort of renaissance of visual effects.
so I'd like to. Greg over here is going to give us a little dog and pony show here. He's going to run it through. Greg, by the way, was the prime instigator of the iPad edition. He kind of pushed for it and handled the lion's share of the work. We shared the lion's share of the grief, but he did the lion's share of the work. And So this is really kind of his baby. So I'm going to let him give a little talk about it.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. So yeah, I think you really did a fine job of summing it up. We wanted to provide something that we would be proud of, and that we didn't want to cheap out in any way. So with the Cinefex Classic Collection, that would be issues 1 through 126. Like my father said, it's completely searchable. So the older issues, since they don't contain video, they're all about 50 meg. So you could probably get every issue on an 8 gig iPad and take it on set with you. If you have any questions about, how did they do that? Well, you can search that. It's a smart search. So let's say you're searching for CG. Well, it doesn't just pick up on every word that's got CG in it. It's going to pick up on terms that only use CG as a category, which it doesn't seem to be working right now. So the search will tell you movies, companies, and then primarily just about every page that Stan was mentioned throughout the entire collection. And then you can scroll through that. So assuming you have every issue downloaded, you can hop back and forth. So it's pretty cool.
Can you do that again and type in Matt World Digital?
Sure.
The thing is, it really is helpful. I do still get this a lot. People will say, we were trying to figure out how to do the old style cloud tank effects. Someone just said this to me last year. So we went and looked at our old Cinefexes. We found the name of, was it
Yeah.
Gary Rydstrom, or Pledek, yeah, who had done it in a lot of the old things, and they called him, and it's great. So, but it's hard to search unless you have this version of it.
Yeah, it's hard to search when you got a
Yeah.
5-foot tall pile of magazines. That's what, to me, the principal benefit of this was two. One, that you can get the whole collection very compactly, but the fact that it makes it searchable is a great tool for us too, because lots of times we're, when we're working on something, we want to refer back to something in a previous article, and it's just easy to find it.
And this has been going well? How is this going? Is this being embraced by the
I wouldn't
public?
say, yeah, it's going well, I guess. I wouldn't say it's a runaway success, but it's steadily growing. People like it. So
talk
I
about
guess it depends on how you define it.
Well, just talk about permission. So it's amazing that you get to show the breakdowns in motion. That's quite a feat to be able to have that in there.
Actually, we're a little surprised at that too. That we've got a couple of studios that won't give us anything, but most of them have been quite cooperative.
That's really great.
The last issue of Cinefex, we're naming names. You notice how nice we are up here? We say this person and that person in this studio, but the last issue, we're naming
Well,
names.
I hope that doesn't happen anytime
We
soon.
have no idea when that will be. It'll be like Rosebud, though. It'll be like the last thing I say.
How are we
Yeah.
doing on
Okay.
time?
Yeah.
Are we outliving our welcome? A few more minutes.
Greg, do you got anything
Any
you
more
want to
questions?
Well,
Anything else?
just wanted to maybe just talk about the later issues. So then 127 and on are digitally reformatted specifically for the iPad. So we specifically designed a horizontal layout so that people who are more interested in just flowing through the images and reading captions could easily do that without getting sucked into the articles.
Without having to read those articles.
But then if you want to, I think we're kind of thinking with the later generation, the mashup generation, they just kind of want to power through photos and look at captions. So I was kind of hoping to please both
Right.
the younger people and.
We're an image-driven culture
You
instead
old
of a
people who
literary
like to
one.
read.
That's right. So we have both. So once you get to an article,
Basically, you're telling me what I've spent the last 30 years of my life doing is,
no, that's not what I'm telling you.
yeah. That's all right.
That's what makes us us.
Yeah, that's all right.
So, but I thought it would be appealing to younger people as well as those who really have the thirst and the quench for the knowledge. And when we created the app, we were thinking, well, this is all about motion pictures, moving pictures. let's take it to the next level and serve up some video. So now we have these breakdowns.
Initialize sequence. All right, I think we got this. Send them off.
And depending on how the project and how cooperative everybody is, we've had as much as, 40 minutes on
Yep.
video on a couple of the issues.
Even I think that's cool.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's just great.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much show and tell at its most basic as far as visual effects go.
Yep. And, some companies love us, like Marvel just happens to be a big fan, and they put together all those breakdowns specifically for us. So some of our videos you see will be exclusive.
That's
Yeah,
fantastic.
we cover a lot of Marvel movies. Pardon? A question?
I just saw a hand up over there.
Okay.
I was just going to ask if you'll have it for the Android. Or for, is it iPad only? Will you eventually have it for tablets? And
It depends on how well the iPad does. We had all of our fans screaming for an iPad edition, and we gave it to them. It really just depends on how this goes.
I'd say it's worth buying an iPad for.
all you Android users.
Yeah, when,
Thank you.
when we
Yourself
first started
iPads.
we started working on the app. It took us about 2 years to get it ready for prime time. The iPad had about 90% of the market share at that point. Now it's down around 50 or less. So it would certainly be nice to make it available in another format, but I'm not sure we're committed at this point to go there.
Another thing we like about Apple versus Android, not to get in that discussion, but Apple's a little more secure, so we're always worried about piracy. You start posting this stuff on the internet, and that's just going to kill us. So with the Android, with that kind of that open operating system they've got there, it's a little concerning. Also, the other nice thing about the iPad is it's, the screen's all the same dimension. And so we can specifically design for the iPad and know that when they come up with their next generation, it's going to look great. With the Android, they all have different screen sizes, different dimensions. How do you do that without it looking a little ugly? And we're particular about our art direction at Cinefx. So
What resolution are you
we're
displaying?
running for the Retina. It's
Cool.
about as high as we can go. So I think it's about 2048 wide,
That's great.
2K.
Just like the movie.
Exactly. Well, now we're getting 4K images from the photos and stuff now. So
Okay. Another question.
There was a time when you would do a breakdown per show of what what vendors were providing effects, and that was a really appreciated part of the magazine. It disappeared. I'm not sure why it happened.
the summary.
Yeah, well, we did do that for a while. Frankly, it was quite a lot of work to put those together, and it was turned out to be kind of a repeat of what was in the article. What we kind of have now in place of that on our website, we have what we call our upcoming film page, and it's not permanently archived up there, but when the film is being made and when it's in release, you can go to that page and click on it and go to each individual film, and it will give you the companies and the supervisors. So that's kind of our compromise for that.
Great, thanks.
I'd like to, if I could add one other thing here. Another thing that we've instituted this year is we had a fella in England named Graham Edwards who about 3 years ago he's a novelist. He writes science fiction and fantasy novels, and he's been a fan of Cinefx forever. And he started on his personal blog doing what did he call it? It was Remembering Cinefx or something, I forgot. But he started out on this quest to blog about every issue of Cinefx, or the first 10 years. So, and he just started doing this. We didn't even know about it. And somehow or other, the first one came across our desk and kind of flew around the office, or what passes for an office for Cinefx. And everybody said, "Wow, this is really neat." The guy, I mean, he was writing these essays about each issue and really kind of talking about them, and it was really nice. And so we kind of struck up a friendship with him, and he kind of became a de facto member of the Cinefex team over the course of all this. And when he finally finished his project after doing 40 of these things, and he would do one about every 2 weeks, we said, well, we don't really want to let this guy go. And we didn't have a blog, and so we made him an offer he couldn't refuse, but it was not of the financial nature, because he could have easily refused it for what we're paying him. But he is now doing Cinefex blog. And once a week, he posts a new column about a whole range of subjects. Sometimes they're about the making of the movies, sometimes they're just opinion pieces, sometimes they're reviews. He does some Q&As. Sometimes they're just fun stuff. Anyway, he's doing a beautiful job on it. And so if you're not following our blog, I encourage you to check it out, because it's really kind of fun. And then in addition to that, Joe and Jody will write a piece once in a while for it. So it's kind of a way of extending the magazine, making it a little more contemporary, or a little more, not contemporary, but a little more current, because we cover some things that are, up to the moment. And it allows us to cover some of the projects that we just don't get to cover in the magazine. And while I'm on that subject, just recently, there's a gentleman sitting out there named Mark Bosco who kind of took that same idea to the next step, and he is doing what he calls the Optical Podcast. And he too is kind of using Cinefex as a framework for what he's doing, and he's he's got 4 of them so far, his first 4 issues of the magazine. He does one a month. And he's doing a podcast where he invites guests in, and they kind of talk about the movies that we covered. And they're very informative and quite entertaining, and we don't have anything to say over it. But anyway, he's doing a great job, and we hope you'll support that too. It's called the Optical Podcast, and I even like the fact that he calls it optical. I mean, that's just kind of, it's not the digital podcast. This is kind of.
These links on your website.
Well, the blog is, but I don't think
Optical podcast, no.
It should be.
Well, absolutely. I'm on it.
All right.
It'll be there by the end of the night.
I saw a question up here. Did you want to ask the lady up there?
I just remember back in the day I used to take Peter Sorensen around to grab articles for you guys. And I didn't realize that it was really, Joe and Jody writing all of this mostly. Is there a group or a team of other writers that have worked with you over the years?
Over the years, yes. We've had a number of writers that wrote for us for a period of time. Mark Cadavaz wrote quite a few articles for us, in the 90s, I guess? I'm not sure exactly when. Paul Salmon wrote quite a few articles for us at one point. Paul Mandel. Mark kind of went on to, he's actually a working freelance writer, and has published a lot of books, including a really terrific one on Merian C. Cooper, which I think is his best book. And so I wouldn't say he got his start with us, because he was a writer before he came to Cinefex, but he wrote a lot of things for us over the years. Let's see.
Mark Voss did The Invisible Art with me.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mark, how could I forget? Yeah, Mark and Craig did The Invisible Art, which is a really wonderful coffee table book on matte paintings and the whole art and technology of matte paintings. It's a very nice piece. Let's see, who am I forgetting? Kevin H. Martin wrote quite a few very good articles for us as a freelancer and as a staff member for a number of years. I'm sure I'm forgetting some. Adam Eisenberg was a regular writer for us for quite a few years, and he, after doing that for a while, he went off and went to law school. Now he's a judge in Seattle. So,
we really have gotten away from the freelance thing for the most part, though. Joe just came on and nailed it so well, and we've been so lucky to have him. because we've often said, like, you know, if something happened, you know, if Joe left, where are we going to find another Joe? Because it took us like 30 years to find Joe, practically, you know, or 20. It is hard to find people who can do this for whatever reason. I'm always kind of surprised, to tell you the truth, but I think it's anything that if you've been doing it a long time, you don't understand why someone else can't do it, you know. So I try to understand that, but it's not easy to find someone who can do this. It's technical. It's got a certain style. It's very long. It's a lot of interviews. So we really stay away from freelancers almost completely. Joe made a movie and was gone for a while, and so we had to have someone. And then I had double carpal tunnel surgery, so we had to find someone, which was Graham, who did our blog, who did such a good job. I recovered from carpal tunnel really fast, let me tell you, because he did like a really phenomenal job. I was afraid I was going to get replaced, but so anyway. Thank God we found Joe. I hope Joe is, you know, solid, going to stick with us for a long time, because I don't know where we would find.
Where else would you
someone.
have this much fun, right, Joe?
Yeah, really. It's just such a joy.
Well, listen, we definitely want you guys to keep doing it, and I think we're going to wrap it up now. So, Don, Jody, thank you so much for being here, and
Greg, thank you.
thank you all
And
for coming.
I want to thank you all for coming. I want to thank the Visual Effects Society and the UCAI Film and Television Archive for hosting this. It's been a lot of fun. Thank you.